Sagittarius, your 15-year karmic debt is paid. May 16, 2025 revenge era begins now. Sagittarius, have you ever felt like you've been carrying invisible chains for years, wondering when the weight would finally lift? What if I told you that the past 15 years were not a punishment but a sacred preparation, and that in 2025 everything begins to change? What if I told you that all the silent sacrifices, the misunderstood kindness, and the unseen battles were never wasted, but were shaping you into the soul who could finally step fully into their light? As May 16, 2025 approaches, a new door swings open, a karmic portal that whispers, "It's your time now." Not for revenge and bitterness, but for a beautiful reclamation of everything you lost and everything you have quietly been building in your heart. This is the year when Saturn and Pluto, two of the universe's greatest teachers, step back to reveal the path you were always meant to walk. And you, Sagittarius, are being called not just to walk it, but to dance upon it with the freedom that only comes when you have paid every debt, learned every lesson, and finally remembered who you truly are. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you will not just understand what is happening, you will feel it in the very core of your soul. And if you feel even the faintest flicker of recognition, like a long-lost part of you starting to wake up, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Not just to follow a channel, but to follow yourself back home. Now, Sagittarius, let's step into the era that was written for you long before you ever knew you were ready. Gate 1, the end of a 15-year cycle. The silent power awakens. Sagittarius, for the past 15 years, your soul has walked a path few could see, let alone understand. You were misunderstood, you collapsed quietly behind smiles, you gave parts of your light to people who never knew how to hold it. But what if I told you that none of it was a mistake? What if I told you that those years were not a punishment, but a sacred preparation written into the architecture of your birth chart, guided by the hands of Saturn and Pluto themselves? Those years trained you, carved you, polished you in silence, not to break you but to prepare you for what you are about to step into now. And as May 16, 2025 arrives, the final chapter of that old book closes, and a new volume opens. A story where you are no longer the one seeking approval, but the one embodying power from within. You see, Sagittarius, your nature was never meant to shrink to fit the world's expectations. You were born to expand, to explore, to lead by the light of your own authenticity. But the universe knew that if you were given that freedom too soon, you might have lost yourself in the noise. So it asked you to endure, to walk through years of hidden trials so you could find a strength no circumstance could ever take away. And you did. You loved without expectation. You forgave without receiving apologies. You stood by those who could not see you, believing if you stayed long enough, you could become visible to them. But the truth is, your soul's mission was never to convince anyone of your worth. It was to remember it for yourself. As the energies shift, Sagittarius, Saturn softens its grip, Pluto retreats from your karmic house, and you are finally free to step out from under the weight of all that wasn't yours to carry. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You no longer need to fight for space that should have been yours all along. The debts have been paid, not because you demanded it, but because you became too luminous to be overlooked. You learned in the deepest parts of your journey that real power is quiet. It is the peace that remains when everything else has fallen away. It is the steady flame that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how strong the storm. And now, Sagittarius, you no longer need permission to bloom. You no longer have to ask for a seat at the table. You are the table. You are the invitation. You are the light that others will seek, not because you demanded it, but because you finally stopped chasing and started being. Imagine it. Walking through your days not needing anyone's applause because your soul itself hums with a music too sacred for the world to ignore. That is what you have earned. That is what begins to unfold in May 2025. The karmic chains are not just being loosened, they are dissolving completely. And in their place you stand lighter, stronger, truer. This next era of your life is not about revenge in the petty sense. It's about reclaiming your time, your voice, your passion, your birthright to live fully and fiercely. The world didn't give you your worth, Sagittarius, so the world cannot take it away. It's always been within you, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. And now that moment is here. Let yourself step forward, not with anger but with grace. Not with shouting but with a silence so powerful it shifts the very air around you. The past 15 years were never about punishment, they were about preparation. You were not abandoned, you were entrusted. And now, as you stand at the gates of this new era, may you walk through not just with hope, but with the unshakable knowing. You have arrived, Sagittarius, and nothing will ever be the same again. Gate 2. Healing the heart. Choosing yourself first. Sagittarius, there was a time when you loved not with caution but with a wild, reckless beauty, giving all that you had without ever calculating the cost. You believed deep down that love could heal anything if only you were patient enough, compassionate enough, giving enough. You stayed even when your heart begged you to leave. You waited when others walked away without a second glance. You forgave, not once but over and over, until your own reflection grew dim from the exhaustion of holding on to what no longer held you. And for a long time you thought maybe something was wrong with you. Maybe you loved too much. Maybe you expected too much. Maybe you were too much. But none of that was ever true. You loved like that because your soul remembers a deeper way of loving. One that transcends transaction and conditions. One that sees the sacred in even the most broken places. You were never wrong for loving as you did. The only thing you forgot was that the first heart you were meant to protect was your own. As May 2025 rises, a new light dawns within you, Sagittarius. A light not dependent on whether someone else chooses you, stays with you, or recognizes your worth. For the first time in a very long time, you begin to choose yourself, not out of bitterness, not because you no longer believe in love, but because you finally understand the true nature of love. Love is not losing yourself so someone else can find comfort. Love is not shrinking your dreams so someone else can shine brighter. Love is not waiting by a door that never opens, hoping one day it will. Love is standing at your own door, arms open, welcoming yourself back home. You stop asking, "When will someone love me the way I deserve?" and start asking, "Am I loving myself the way I have always deserved?" That shift, Sagittarius, is the real miracle. And when it happens, you find that your sadness no longer feels like drowning. It becomes a soft tide that you can sit beside without fear. You stop being afraid of being alone. You stop begging the universe to send someone to fill the aching spaces, because you realize those spaces are no longer voids to be filled. They are gardens you are learning to tend yourself. And as you do, something even more beautiful happens. Without forcing, without chasing, your energy changes to become steady, gentle, unmistakable. People notice, though you are not trying to be noticed. They feel drawn to you not because you are performing, but because your very being radiates peace. Your light, once trembling from wanting to be seen, now shines effortlessly, unbothered by who sees or who does not. Perhaps an old friend reaches out. Perhaps a stranger lingers a little longer when you pass by. Perhaps you simply catch your own reflection and, for the first time, smile not because someone else gave you a reason, but because you gave it to yourself. Sagittarius, your heart is no longer a battlefield where you fight for someone to stay. It is a sanctuary where love is welcome but not begged for. You no longer need to cling to half promises, to fragments of affection tossed like breadcrumbs. You no longer need to prove you are lovable by enduring neglect or misunderstanding. You are lovable because you exist. You are worthy because you breathe. And the most magical thing is that now love comes, not to complete you, but to complement the fullness you have nurtured within. Maybe not today, maybe not in the way you once imagined, but it will come quietly, naturally, in the form of someone who sees the real you because you dared to see yourself first. Sagittarius, love is no longer something you search for, something you embody. And in May 2025, as your heart beats with this newfound clarity, every aspect of your life begins to shift. Relationships deepen, not because you need them to survive, but because you choose them from a place of strength. Connections strengthen, not through effort, but through authenticity. And even solitude no longer feels like loneliness, it feels like sacred space. You, Sagittarius, are finally coming home to yourself. And there is no greater love story than that. Gate 3, rising into abundance. The rebirth of your mission and prosperity. Sagittarius, for so long you have moved through life with a heart wide open and hands often empty. You worked not because you always loved what you did, but because you needed to survive, to prove even to yourself that you could endure. You stayed in spaces that dulled your spirit. You bent to fit molds that were never made for you. You gave away your energy to jobs, to people, to dreams that barely reflected the fire burning inside you. And still, you wondered why it all felt so hollow. You questioned why, no matter how much you gave, the true rewards, the ones that nourished your soul, seemed to stay just out of reach. But what if all of that was not failure, Sagittarius? What if it was refinement? A silent, often painful training ground for the extraordinary chapter that is now beginning for you. Because now, as May 2025 unfurls its cosmic map, you are stepping into a completely new relationship with work, with prosperity, and most importantly, with yourself. You are no longer here to survive. You are here to thrive. The universe is no longer asking you to push harder or sacrifice more. It is asking you to align, to stop chasing what depletes you and start embracing what expands you. You are realizing that career is not about proving your worth through endless hustle. It's about expressing your soul's deepest truths through the work you choose. And as you make this shift, Sagittarius, doors that once seemed sealed shut now begin to creak open. Not because you forced them, but because your energy calls to them. Maybe it's a new project that mirrors your passion. Maybe it's a sudden opportunity in a field you had quietly dreamed about but never dared to pursue. Maybe it's a collaboration with souls who see your value without you having to explain it. Whatever it is, it comes not because you chased it, but because you became ready to receive it. And as your professional world transforms, so too does your relationship with abundance. Money, once a symbol of struggle or sacrifice, now becomes a reflection of self-respect. You no longer shy away from asking for what you deserve. You no longer settle for being undervalued, because you believe kindness must come at your own expense. You see now that true abundance isn't greed. It's the natural result of honoring your own light. You understand that when you value your energy, your time, your gifts, the universe does too. Sagittarius, you are entering an era where you no longer need to explain why you are worthy. You simply are. And this shift is not just external. It's spiritual. It's energetic. You no longer fear success because you know it does not change who you are. You no longer sabotage opportunities because you trust that you can handle them with grace. You are no longer afraid to be seen, to be celebrated, to be prosperous. Not because you crave validation, but because you have finally remembered. Prosperity is your natural state when you live in alignment with your soul. Imagine waking up each morning not with dread, but with quiet excitement. Imagine walking into your work, not as a battleground, but as a sacred ground where your spirit can breathe and expand. Imagine no longer feeling guilty for succeeding, no longer feeling the need to downplay your wins to make others comfortable. That is what is unfolding now. The universe is rearranging itself around your new frequency, Sagittarius. A frequency that says, I am allowed to be abundant. I am allowed to be joyful. I am allowed to shine. And the most beautiful part? As you rise, you naturally lift others. Not by sacrificing yourself, but by embodying what it means to live authentically and abundantly. You become a lighthouse, not by striving to be one, but simply by being yourself. And for those who are ready, your light will guide them home too. Sagittarius, May 2025 is not just the start of a lucky streak. It is the harvest of seeds you planted in tears, in faith, in unseen perseverance over the past 15 years. It is the reward not for being perfect but for being real. You are not stepping into a new chapter by accident. You are stepping into it because you built it even when you didn't know you were. So now stand tall. Take up space. Speak your dreams aloud. Let your work be a song that your soul sings without fear. Let your success be an offering to the universe, not proof that you are worthy, but a celebration of the fact that you always were. And if fear whispers in your ear, reminding you of old failures or old betrayals, smile gently and say, thank you, but I choose differently now. You are no longer the person who has to hustle for crumbs. You are the person who is ready for a feast. And it's not just waiting for you. It's been prepared for you. Walk forward, Sagittarius. The era of scarcity is over. The era of soulful abundance begins now. Conclusion: the era of becoming begins now. Sagittarius, if you are still here reading these words, then something inside you has already awakened. A knowing older than memory but as fresh as the first breath of a new dawn. You are not stepping into May 2025 as the same person who once doubted, once feared, once waited for permission to shine. You are entering it as the soul who has survived, softened, sharpened, and now stands steady at the edge of a vast new life. The 15 years behind you were not wasted. They were the soil where your deepest roots grew. They were the forge where your gentleness became unbreakable. They were the nights when you thought no one saw you but the stars were bearing silent witness to your becoming. And now, with Saturn and Pluto easing their karmic hold, you are no longer bound to the old storylines of survival, sacrifice, or smallness. You are free to live as you were always meant to: vast, vibrant, unapologetically luminous. You no longer need to beg for a place at someone else's table, because you carry an entire galaxy within you. You no longer need to question whether you are worthy, because every breath you take confirms that you are. You no longer have to hustle for love, for success, for safety, because they are already woven into the fabric of who you are becoming. This new era is not about proving anything. It is about being everything you are without apology, without shrinking, without fear. And if old doubts creep in, if the voice of the past tries to lure you back into smaller versions of yourself, remember this. The universe didn't carry you through every loss, every heartbreak, every sleepless night just to leave you at the edge of your becoming. Brought you here because you are ready. Ready to live a life where your heart is no longer a battlefield but a sanctuary. Ready to work not to survive but to create beauty and meaning. Ready to love not to be chosen but to share the overflowing abundance within you. Ready to wake each day with a quiet certainty. I am where I am meant to be, and what is meant for me will find me effortlessly, because I am no longer chasing life. I am living it. Sagittarius, if this journey stirred something deep within you, if your heart whispered yes at any point along the way, I invite you now to honor it. Like this message if it touched you. Share it if you know someone else walking through their own sacred transformation. Subscribe to our Zodiac Wisdom community so that you always have a light to come home to, no matter how far you roam. Because Sagittarius, your journey is no longer about survival. It is about radiance. It is about living the life your soul dreamed of long before you ever knew the battles you would have to fight to get here. Welcome home. Your era begins now.